Everyone wants to go viral, but virality doesn't always build trust or even profit. Sometimes it's a sugar rush that leaves you weaker very quickly. The smartest reputations aren't built on explosions of attention, they're built on something quieter, steadier, and much harder to copy. Variety feels like winning. Your name everywhere, your clip in everyone's feed, DMs lighting up like the fruit machines. But attention isn't the same as trust. And it certainly isn't the same as loyalty or cash flow. And we'll go on to talk about that later on in the podcast. So we'll pull this apart. We'll look at a brand that owned the sound of summer, that genuinely went viral this year, yet found the trading picture quite underwhelming. We'll also look at a rare human story where virality did lead to lasting impact. Then we'll explain, without jargon, how the algorithms actually decide what does go viral and what doesn't. How that money really flows and when it does. Finally, we'll give you a measured strategy, how to combine spikes with substance so that you aren't just at the mercy of the algorithms. So if you were anywhere near TikTok or Instagram this summer, you've heard it. The relentless, nothing beats a Jet2 holiday. But the thing is that the sound didn't trend because people were celebrating flawless package deals. It went viral because it was ironic. The jingle became the backing track for videos of flight delays, chaotic poolside scenes, and general holiday disasters. In other words, the audience took Jet2's intended message, which is this carefree fun in the sun, and turned it into a cultural in-joke. And this is not unusual. It's the internet loves to subvert these corporate messages, and that's how the algorithms and virality work. But the reach was staggering. Millions of videos, tens of millions of impressions, and Jet2 suddenly dominating social chatter. For months over this summer, it felt like every other TikTok had that cheery tune laid over some form of chaos, travel chaos. But to their credit, Jet2 didn't retreat. They leaned into it, offering voucher giveaways, running TikTok challenges, and even reposting some of the better memes. They followed the playbook of don't fight it, but join it and try and leverage it. And for a period, it looked like a marketing masterstroke. But in September 2025, the financial update dropped, and the reality bit. Jet2 reported that passenger growth in summer 2025 was up just 2% in package holidays, compared to 8% the previous year, with no viral videos. Bookings were increasingly last minute, which makes it harder to price and plan capacity effectively. Their winter seat capacity was cut by 200,000 seats to match that softer demand, and profit guidance was revised downwards, and stock fell by 13 to 15% actually in a single day. So we have these two parallel realities. On TikTok and Instagram, Jet2 was the sound of the summer. In the markets, Jet2 was a company issuing cautious guidance and pulling back capacity. And so this disconnect is the problem with fetishizing virality. The online perception can be completely divorced from commercial outcomes. Not always, but a lot of the time. Attention doesn't necessarily always mean sales. Likes don't equal bookings. Share of voice is not the same as share of wallet. I laugh because share of voice is something which many marketeers, comms people talk about, and I think it can be an important metric. But it's probably more valuable when you compare your share of voice to competitors, rather than try to relate it to the impact on bottom line. But I don't think Jet2 did anything wrong here. They actually played the viral moments really well. But the lesson is quite sobering, because virality can distort the external perception that we have of success. It makes it look like you've won the summer when the P&L says otherwise. Now, one could argue that, well, it's then served its purpose. And actually, if the majority of the population think that Jet2 Holidays must be doing really well because they've had this viral summer, then in a way it's worked as a PR machine, and I'm sure performance will recover. But as I say, the actual reality and the two things are completely divorced. So for balance, let's talk about one of the most viral clips ever on British TV. This is a long time ago now, but in 2013, Channel 4's Educating Yorkshire, which is now back on TV for the first time since this first series, captured an extraordinary classroom moment. English teacher Matthew Burton was working with a student, Musharaf Ashgar, who had a severe stammer. Musharaf struggled to speak in class, his words catching painfully in his throat. Mr. Burton suggested trying a technique from the King's Speech movie. Headphones playing music to help Musharaf find a rhythm when actually talking publicly. And so with the headphones on, Musharaf stood in front of his classmates and began to read aloud. At first, it didn't seem to be working. He was halting. But then he was gathering his flow until the words came very clearly. And Mr. Burton just fell silent and couldn't believe it, and was visibly emotional in the clip itself. So the clip went everywhere. I would strongly advise, if you don't know, if you haven't seen it, to check it out on YouTube. Millions and millions have watched it. It made international headlines. Educators, parents, speech therapists, and ordinary viewers around the world shared it. Musharaf himself later said he was overwhelmed by the letters of support he had received from strangers across continents. So unlike Jet2's jingle, and the reason why I'm comparing these two is that this was virality rooted in something deeply human: vulnerability, empathy, the transformative power of teaching. And a decade later, the story hasn't really faded. As I said, they've now just started a new series of Educating Yorkshire. Burton is now the head teacher at the academy. Musharaf studied journalism at university and has built a career, in fact, in motivational speaking. And he's there inspiring others who struggle with stammering and self-confidence. And now that Channel 4 have revisited the Academy in a new series, the clip has now become not just a meme, but a turning point in two people's lives. So this is what sustainable virality can look like. That moment, as far as I can see, wasn't necessarily manufactured. They may have thought to do that in advance, but I don't think he knew if it was going to work. It wasn't ironic. It wasn't a moment divorced from substance. it was the real story of growth and resilience in that 30-second clip. And it's now formed the narrative of both their lives. And so I guess I feel contradicting myself. Virality can work, but it has to be tethered to authenticity and depth. And Musharaf's courage and Burton's compassion gave people something to really hold on to. Um, Long after now that the show went live. So how about people who decide what goes viral? Because now we're dictated by algorithms and social media machines. And if we talk about the power dynamic, most creators and brands actually ignore. The problem is going viral is not a referendum on quality. It's a decision by the algorithm which is optimized for its own platform goals. So TikTok feeds you videos based on signals like watch time, rewatches, completion rate, interactions. It explicitly says for the For You feed is a personalized ranking, and it's always being adjusted. And so that means the great content for you is what keeps you on TikTok. YouTube does the same, but at a massive scale. 80 billion signals recommendation systems tuned to satisfaction and long watch time across home and up. Next, again, the goal is to keep people on YouTube. Instagram runs separate ranking systems for feed, stories, reels, and explore, prioritizing predicted interest and interaction. So if your clip spikes engagement for Instagram, the system rewards it. If not, then you won't be seen that much on Instagram, if I'm being quite honest. So the truth is, virality mostly is there for the benefits of the platform. More time on sites, more ads served, more data. But if you don't have a way to convert that spike into something you own, like an email list, a product, a service, or a community you're growing, that platform is capturing the surplus value, and it's not you. So how about things like payouts and how does that work? I'll briefly, without going into too much detail to lose most of you, I can give you a bit of an overview of which platforms actually pay the most and the structure of payments that they have. So TikTok is the original creator fund, but actually only often pays out pennies, cents per 1,000 views. Prominent creators publicly sharing how tiny their payments are on their TikTok. And actually TikTok has since ended the fund and shifted to a creativity program, which incentivizes longer videos and can actually pay a bit more. But payouts remain variable and opaque, and creators are still reporting very modest revenue numbers. Instagram is of course a Meta platform. Meta ended its broad Reels play bonuses in 2023 and has since shut down or evolved other ad sharing pilots. So there is little to no reliable direct per view income for most creators on Instagram now. Money is typically made from brand deals, and as a creator on Instagram, you negotiate that yourself. On YouTube, a little bit different. They have a partner program which shares ad revenue with creators, roughly 55% on long form and 45% on shorts. Ad fan funding, shopping, and premium rev share. It's a pretty good system if you do well. And it's still the most predictable monetization for video at scale. But even here, a one-off viral clip is rarely a business. So yes, as you can see, going viral can make money on YouTube especially, but only if it sits on the top of a repeatable system. Frequent output, stable audience, products to buy, and places for people to subscribe. So why does virality actually work? And we're going to go into the psychology. I like to explain the what, but then we always move on to the why it actually has impact. And that's really stemmed from psychology. And there are a few things, such as the availability heuristic, which essentially suggests that what we can easily recall, we assume is common or important. So viral content is vivid and everywhere. So we overweight it. The brain says, well, if I'm seeing it constantly, it must be huge. Whereas in reality, it's a distribution artifact. The algorithm is showing you the same thing many, many times. Social proof in public, like likes, comment storms, stitches, visible signals of attention at it's like an applause from the crowd. And then we infer value from other people's reactions, regardless of our own judgments. And then there's the novelty of the dopamine hit. So spikes are, of course, exciting. Freshness feels like significance, but the novelty will fade by design. The feed is replaced day on day, and a viral meme is usually quickly forgotten. So spikes really hack the human attention, but they're not necessarily going to hack your human memory. So I think it's an important point to remember. So there is this level of algorithmic volatility. We're at the mercy of the algorithm. The same system that lifts you is going to drop you. The inputs change, product teams tweak the ranking, and what soared last month won't work the next month. So what's the antidote? And again, I talk about this a lot, but it's even with these models, it's all about consistency. And you don't have to be a purist. A spike can be useful if it plugs into a system designed for compounding. So I'd say you have to own a channel that you control. So an email list, a podcast feed, a community space, somewhere where that platform can't demote you. And of course, it's useful to have spikes within that. But make repetition your product. Treat consistency as something people can rely on. They know your product or your content piece is coming every week. So in a format that they recognize. It's that promise that becomes your identity. Design the on-ramp, so when a clip really pops, your profile should make it effortless to go deeper. Pinned explainers, playlists, newsletter links to products. That spike is the first step and chapter one, but then it should then allow you to dive into all your other assets. And then measure what matters. So don't judge success by views alone. Really build dashboards, track returning viewers, watch time per viewer, email conversations, repeat purchase rate, referral shares. That it's those metrics that really tell you if the attention is becoming loyalty. So Jet2 shows the platform problem. You can own the meme and still fight a soft market and late bookings. A sound can trend but the margins don't necessarily do the same. So, but then with Educating Yorkshire, it shows the human exception. If the thing that goes viral is real character, combined with, say, your profession or that craft, it can seed a real reputation performer. and that will then mature, as we've seen, over a period of time. So the lesson really is, don't never go viral. You don't have to never go viral. That's not, it's good to go viral every now and again. Just don't build your whole model on that one moment. So why does this stuff work? And what's the psychology behind it? And we can dive into the availability heuristic. And that's coined by Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman. The availability heuristic is our tendency to judge something's importance or frequency by how easily examples come to mind. In one famous study, participants were asked whether more English words begin with the letter K or have K as the third letter. Most people said begin with K because it's easier to recall words like kite and like kangaroo than to search the memory for ask or make. So in reality, the latter is more common. So Virality exploits this bias. If you see Jet2's jingle in your feed all day, your brain assumes Jet2 must be dominating the market. It doesn't occur to you that this impression is just the algorithm showing you that same clip repeatedly. Our perception is tricked. Salience feels like significance. The mere exposure effect was discovered by Robert Zajonc, and it shows that repeated contact with a stimulus increases our liking for it, even if the stimulus is neutral or meaningless. Zajonc ran experiments where participants were shown random shapes or nonsense words, and the more often they saw an item, the more positively they rated it. And this is the psychology of branding. Familiarity breeds trust. One viral spike creates intensity, but it's consistency and that repeated exposure over weeks and years that creates that builds the equity. Jet2's jingle has been everywhere this summer, just gone. And Educating Yorkshire remains remembered a decade later because that story built into their lives. Whereas I think the Jet2 jingle will more than likely soon disappear. And then there's the narrative identity. So psychologist Dan McAdams developed the life story model of identity, arguing that humans understand themselves and others through evolving personal narratives. We don't remember isolated incidents as much as we remember arcs. So struggle, turning point, and then growth. Virality is often an incident, but reputation is the arc. So Jet2's jingle has no arc. It's a moment in time, whereas Musharaf's breakthrough became the arc. From stammering schoolboy to confident speaker. That's why his story speaks. So, as early as 1971, Nobel laureate Herbert Simon observed that a wealth of information creates a poverty of attention. So in a saturated media environment, what matters is not just grabbing attention, but holding it and then converting it to memory and trust. But virality is designed for the opposite. And this is the thing. So platforms like TikTok and Insta really optimize for novelty. So to wrap up on the psychology and to link it with our case studies, the viral moments hijack the availability heuristic. They feel bigger than they actually are. And they don't automatically deliver the repetition needed for trust, and that's the mere exposure effect. They rarely fit into a narrative arc unless you build one, and they exist in a system optimized for distraction and not depth. So the almost like the antiviral playbook I would suggest is own it. So choose one channel, control and commit to a consistent schedule. Add clear CTAs, default links. Every post can convert attention into subscribers or customers. It's not easy, but you just have to keep going. Repeat it. Consistent format weekly, and let then the mere exposure effect do its work. And spikes are okay. And once every now and again, if you can get a spike and something goes viral, then fantastic. But then build on it. And of course, we spoke about analytics and tracking, really important. So I would say, pick your if you do want to do something, or if you're looking to produce content, or just trying to win over an idea at work or in life, pick that channel, whatever it is, and write one sentence that explains why people should subscribe to that channel. And then slowly build on that. Repeat that for many weeks. Publish things. Do stuff consistently with quality. And then eventually, in time, it won't happen overnight, you should start to see the real results and not just the impressions. So, a thing to remember, virality is attention, no doubt. But reputation is built in the memory. Memory is built by the things you do repeatedly, long after the memes have left. Talk soon.